Welcome to the Believe, Be Real, Be Bold podcast for authentic daters. I'm your host, Dave in Denver. Each week, we invite expert guests to come share their knowledge, tools, and tips to help you show up as your most authentic self. Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the BBR podcast. I'm so honored to have a special guest with me today, Ms. Renee Slansky. How are you today?
I'm really well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. Where in the world are you calling from?
So I'm actually calling from Greece. I'm actually Australian. I'm actually half Czech as well, but much more Australian. And we are actually currently based here in Greece. And at this time of the year, it's actually quite cold and windy and miserable outside. But most of the time, it's sunny and lovely and warm.
Good. That's awesome. And you're running a work from anywhere business, from what I've learned.
Yeah.
How and why did you get into what it is that you do?
Yeah, so basically I am a professional dating, relationship and life coach. It was something that I didn't grow up thinking that's what I was going to be. It's something that purely happened by default. I dated a man, I think about 8 years ago, who had a child to a previous relationship. And this was at the time before, dating apps had really kind of come around, or, online dating, and what it was like. No one really talked about what modern relationships were, such as, dating other people who had children, or dating after divorce and things like that. And so I came up across all these battles of actually dating this man in this modern relationship. And I realized that it needed to be talked about. So I created my blog, The Dating Directory, and I wanted it to be a platform for women where you were able to go to for resource, for knowledge, for support on what dating and trying to cultivate a healthy relationship actually look like on a practical level nowadays, and how to navigate your way around that. And then 5 years on, that ended up becoming the #1 dating and relationship blog in Australia, top 30 worldwide. From there, that led into coaching. I write for some of the biggest magazines and sites around the world, including Bustle, Huffington Post. I have articles translated into different languages. And I also give dating and relationship advice to, all the big dating websites around the world, like Plenty of Fish, eHarmony. And I guess, I took my experiences and what I was going through, and I turned my struggles into my story, but also knowledge. And I've become really passionate about love education. And so that's what I focus on now. Not just giving the quick sort of fix, but more actually retraining people's minds and educating people on how to actually build and cultivate healthy relationships with themselves and with the person that they want to attract into their life. And I think love education is something that, unless you're taught it by your parents, if you're lucky enough to have parents whose marriage has actually survived and been healthy, you don't learn it except by trial and error. They don't teach it in schools. You can't do a course in it. I mean, obviously life is the best experience when it comes to relationships, but we shouldn't have to go through multiple battles and heartache and divorce and confusion in order to figure out what it is that we want and what it is that we can actually have as well.
I totally agree that trial and error, or more appropriately, crash and burn,
Yes.
Dating education is how it works nowadays in the modern dating world. After 5 years of writing blogs and speaking to so many people worldwide, what's the one big takeaway in in love education that you would want our listeners to know?
I guess probably the biggest revelation for myself, which is what I pass on, because I'm always asked, if you had one piece of advice, what would it be? Is that you're the fairy tale, not a man, or not a relationship, or not a woman. And I think a lot of the time we look for the solution of what we want in somebody else instead of realizing that we can be that. And so we place all this expectation and the fairy tale to somebody else who's looking for the exact same thing in someone else as well. And it just becomes this really toxic sort of cycle. And for me, that revelation of knowing that I am my own change, I am my own rescue, I am my own fairy tale, meant that I could be my own love, my own greatest love. And that was so fulfilling that any sort of love that I had elsewise in my life was just an added bonus. instead of just trying to complete me. So I think definitely that is something that, especially for women, if you understand that your happiness isn't completed by a man, it's something that's just added, or of men, if you're searching for this dream woman, if you understand that you can have just that sense of fulfillment outside of her, then it actually puts less pressure on the people that you're dating. It means that you don't feel that you're under this time constriction to find someone by a certain date, and you don't have this fear of missing out, because you know how to be sustainable and thrive without somebody. And you realize that it is only worth having someone come into your life and invest into someone if they add to that happiness. As if they take away from it, it's not good. It becomes this precious gift of falling in love with who you are. And once you've reached that revelation, you just want to hold on to it. And because you realize that that's a very rare thing to be able to do, to fully accept yourself at every season that you're in and know that it's enough. That's something that you just, like I said, you become quite possessive over. And then you realize, okay, well, I'm only going to let someone into my life because I know that they're only going to increase that love for myself, as well as obviously encourage love for them as well.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So you're empowering people through a self-discovery process. And when somebody comes to you, where do you begin with them? Maybe they're hesitant on the self-discovery because we know that it's going to be hard and it's going to be a little bit painful. Where do you begin?
Yeah, well, look, I'll be totally honest. The majority of the time that I have male or female clients come to me, it's because they want to know how to date strategically. They want to know how to meet their future partner. Okay. They want to know how to do dating in such a way that it's not this painful process, or they want to know, okay, well, how do I find a husband? And they either come and do my course, or they come and, do one-on-one coaching with me, and they walk away. They come in with the intention of finding a man, and they walk away falling completely in love with who they are. And then by default, that right person then walks into their life. And I see it like every time. And it's kind of something I have a little chuckle with myself every time they come to me and they're like, yeah, but I want this and this. And I'm like, okay. And then I do my process, and they're like, oh my gosh. And they realize how much time they have to find a man. They realize how beautiful the wait is, and how it doesn't have to be something that we feel is a draining process. And again, they're able to recognize and identify that man or woman earlier on, because their mindset's changed. Their relationship with their self has changed. So therefore their level of awareness has changed. So yeah, it's something that and it means that they set themselves up for sustainable results, because the relationship with yourself is obviously going to determine and affect every other relationship in your life. So if you're on rocky ground with yourself, even if an amazing partner walks into your life, the chances are it's going to become rocky at a certain point, because you haven't actually fixed the strong foundations within yourself.
I completely agree. And I've always built this foundation of my own personal dating journey on that it starts with me. And it helps me have hope and faith that the process will yield the results that I want. Not completely systemizing my dating process, because it's not a business. It's not how to mow the lawn. It's not like that. But if we have the mindset, like you were talking about, of positivity and manifesting that ideal person, then it makes the process easier.
Yeah, mindset is everything. And it's something that I actually do, like I said, in a lot of my training. I've just actually released a brand new course, which is a 30-day course. But for 21 of those days, you have a mantra to do, which is about retraining your brain, because it takes 21 days for your brain to form a neurological pathway, which then becomes a new habit, because it's out of our habits that we then create our life, So if you're always thinking, I'm never going to find a good man, I'm never, or, all people are cheaters, or all people are crap, or all dates are crap, all relations are crap, or all people are unauthentic, then you're only ever going to see that and believe that. And whatever we think, we believe, and we act out of, and we attract. Now, whilst manifesting and thinking and having the right mindset is incredibly important, because it initiates the process, there obviously has to be that action. You can't just sit back and think every day, I'm going to find my dream husband, I'm going to find my dream whatever. It has to be, okay, well, what are you doing on a daily basis to actually turn that thought into a process? What action are you accountable for in order to be able to actually make that manifestation accelerated into your life? Yeah.
Absolutely. Totally agree that it takes action. And you're one of those experts that help people take action. And what I like to talk to people about is set healthy boundaries, learn how to manage your own expectations, and then set your intentions for what you actually want. After we do all that, how do we help people stay positive and work away from that frustration process?
Well, the thing is, you're always going to have some level of disappointment and frustration in dating because you can't control the outcome and you can't control other people. And it's not about expecting to date once all that is eliminated, because then you'll never date and you'll end up 90 and old and you'll still be single. It's about knowing how to navigate your way around that and not allowing circumstances to govern your actions or your feelings, and at the same time not allowing your feelings to govern your actions at the end of the day. And I think when it comes to dating, we're always going to go through periods of, if we know how to date differently and we know how to date strategically, then it doesn't have to be this really sort of draining process, because you shouldn't have to date then as many people and it doesn't become a numbers game. And when you do date, there's intention behind those dates. There's a little bit of thought instead of just going on this random sort of date. Okay. But there's always going to be a couple of people that you have to kind of, work out who you're actually compatible with, whether there's not a connection, in order to know whether or not, okay, there's potential with this person. And really, it's like anything. It's about being consistent. The more that you're consistent on what it is, that you have to do in order to reach the goal, that's when you'll eventually get there. Logic says, okay, well, if I'm doing what I know needs to happen in order to be able to reach that goal, whether it's work, finance, love life, by logic, you're going to get it. And in dating, there's only really two factors, and that is your actions and time. Now, obviously we can't control time, but I do firmly believe that our actions can either hinder or accelerate the amount of time it takes to actually find someone or attract the right person. So your focus should not so much be time then. It should be, okay, well, what can I do with my actions? What can I do on a daily basis to actually keep encouraging having a positive, dating life? And that doesn't necessarily mean, okay, well, I'm going to go on another app or I'm going to go on this date just because you feel that you need to be proactive in order to be able to meet someone. An action in your dating might be, I'm going to actually take a break. I'm actually going to reset a little bit. I'm actually going to date myself for a bit because I can see that now I'm only dating out of desperation or out of boredom. Okay. So that's what I mean. You've got to have, that's why love education is so important, because it doesn't just give you the one thing to find a man. It's actually a whole thing, because it's about the relationship with yourself. You are the common denominator and you act out of that. You act out of your mindset, your habits, what you attract, what you think. It's a whole picture thing. Like relationships are whole people, so it's not just one thing. You can't just have a texting script and then go, okay, text him this and then you'll get your dream man. You text him that, yeah, he'll come running. But A, what if he's not the right sort of guy that you should be even investing into? And B, what next? You've got him, then where's it going to go? So it's a whole thing. And that's why I say in any of my coaching and my programs, I'm about, okay, well, I'm setting you up for a lifestyle goal here and something that is sustainable. And if you want something to be sustainable, it's not about all of a sudden doing everything when you meet the right person. It's about doing it before you meet the right person. So you've got those positive habits and mindset and actions already in place, so that when they come along, it lasts, and you've got a better chance of having it last at least. Yeah.
That makes perfect sense to me. And we're seeing ourselves maybe down the road a little bit. We still need to do a little bit of work on ourselves, but we're ready to date. And I want to focus on that screening process. You said compatibility, and then also there's I don't want to say process of elimination, but when it comes down to it, that is kind of what it is like. But if we phrase it like a screening process, tell us about that.
Yeah. Look, I think most people don't want to just keep going on dates with time wasters. We want to know earlier on if there's someone that we should continue to invest into. And I think a lot of the time what we do is we don't actually realize that there's two phases to dating. There's the dating phase and then there's the relationship phase. And what we want is we want the relationship phase. And the relationship phase is the commitment, it's the familiarity, and it's the certainty that we know with the right person. And if you're expecting that in the dating phase when you're getting to know the person, you're already self-sabotaging. Okay. And that's when you put too much pressure on that date or that person, or you have this unmet expectation. Sorry, I'm just going to put this light on. And it basically means that you're expecting this amazing relationship with a person that you don't even really know. So what I say is if you're able to just obviously know the red flags and the white flags, but the only thing that you should really be focusing on when you go on a date with somebody is, how do I feel when I'm with them about myself? How do I feel when I'm with them about who they are? And do I actually want to have a second date with them? That's as far as it should actually go. And I think the reason why men actually have a way more positive experience with dating than women, because you think about it, most of the time you hear women complaining about dating more so than men. Okay. Men seem to find it really exciting still. They don't seem to find it as draining. They're just kind of like, yeah, great, I'm going on a date, where a woman's like, oh my God, I have to go on another date. And what if this guy, because we've already jumped into the relationship phase. Where guys, they tend to stay more in the dating phase because they're like, cool, am I going to be attracted to her? How do I feel about her? Do I want to take her on a second date? That's all they think, right? And so I think we need to do that and not so much worry about, do we have to know everything about them to work out if they're a time waster straight away? You're not going to know that in the first 2 hours of getting to know someone, because people are going to be on their best behavior on the first date as well. And it's about making sure that you're not just falling in love with the good them, but you understand what their default character is, and that 3 months down the track, you really know that they're the same consistent person, you know? So it's, yes, you need to be able to understand the red flags early on if you can, but at the same time, in the initial stages of dating someone, it shouldn't be, are they going to be my husband? Are they going to be my future boyfriend? It's just, who's this person here in front of me? How do I feel when I'm with them? Do I feel safe? Do I feel excited? Do I feel like we're on the same page? If yes, okay, I'll have a second date with them. And over time, people will reveal their true character and intentions anyway. And that's just a part of dating that you can't skip. And it's a part of dating that we shouldn't want to skip over, because we want to make sure that whoever we emotionally attach ourselves to is someone that is worth attaching ourselves to, that we're not going to get hurt, you know, that it's going to be something that's been worth the investment. Yeah.
I completely follow along and I love it. Absolutely love that advice. I used to have that bad habit of racing to the second level of intimacy, which is what I think you're talking about. And forgetting that I can really enjoy that first level of intimacy, which is the dating process.
Yeah.
And I love that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I love that you counsel to slow down and be present and appreciate the time and that beginning steps, because that's where the butterflies are and that's where the fun experience comes into.
Yeah. Not only that, it's also where you get to know someone's character. And as I said, if you're rushing into the intimacy stage, and the intimacy stage isn't necessarily sex, it's also being familiar, being in that relationship phase of sleeping over each other's house and, you know, doing things together, where you stop basically courting each other. You just go straight into this is convenient because it means that we don't have to spend money, we don't have to go out, we don't have to put in extra effort because we both like each other. And so that's when you move into things too soon, and then you get relationship burnout, or you get love burnout, where it all moves too quick. And then before you know it, he usually pulls back because he's like, this isn't a challenge anymore, I don't have chase, or it's all happened too fast. Or you realize you've committed to someone that you don't really know, and you then work out who they are 3 or 6 months down the track, and by then you've already got that emotional attachment to them. So that's why I recommend not racing the dating phase, because it gives you a chance to really know who you are actually dating, because people change as well over time. And it's the best part as well. Falling in love with someone and you know, the honeymoon phase and the courting and the anticipation and the excitement. That's why we love dating initially. And that's why would you race, you know, the best part of a relationship, which is that initial sort of stage.
I'm still like beginning to date, and I'm still enjoying that first phase of the process. I really love it. And when I was getting to know you a little bit before we jumped on the recording, you warned against oversharing. And what I learned from that, or maybe what I'm taking away from our conversation so far, is that that's one way to stay safe, but still share enough to continue to enjoy the process and move that first level of intimacy forward. But it may also relate to preventing self-sabotage also. So my question is the sharing not enough and not oversharing, staying in this safe zone where we're not necessarily too invested too early, but we're also not self-sabotaging. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got to understand whether you're a male or female. Obviously, one of the major things that if you're a man, you're attracted to a woman because she gives you that chase, that challenge, or that mystery. And so women, if they understand that that's what men's looking for, they can use that to their advantage to have a guy interested in them. Where on the flip side, if you're a woman and you're searching for this man, or you're a man and you're searching for this woman, you know that you're going to, again, be more attracted to her if she's not giving everything up straight away. And it's about a dance. Dating is like, okay, well, I'm going to do a little bit, then you're going to do a little bit. And it's about giving equal investment and allowing that time and space to work out, okay, well, do I want to keep giving more? It's not about going, here's my life, here's everything on a silver platter because I have a connection with you. Connection doesn't equal compatibility. And just because we have a connection with someone doesn't mean it should dictate the pace of the relationship, okay? As I see a lot of people go and have a 24-hour date and then wonder why they don't hear from the guy ever again, right? It's just like, well, you just gave everything to him. He's got why he doesn't need to call you again? He's just got it all there, So if you're able, again, it's about being educated on what to do and the reason behind why you actually need to do it. Because if you want that guy to continue to be interested in you, if you want that girl to continue to interest in you, there has to be a reason. And that reason is that you're not giving everything straight away, that you still have some mystery about yourself. And this isn't about playing games. It's about understanding what they need in order to be fulfilled, what the relation needs in order to be able to dictate the right sort of pace, and then just simply doing that. That makes sense.
Absolutely. It totally makes sense to me because I've been in that position before where I've come up against a choice. Am I going to invest more time into somebody else while maintaining my healthy boundaries that I've set for myself? Because I've come to a point where it's no longer equal investment on both sides. And I relate to this most when I was using dating apps to meet people because I'm a busy business owner. I don't have a whole lot of extra time. And I have a daughter too. She's 16. So she's a top priority for me. When I would initiate conversation on a dating app, and then it would go 3 or 4 messages back and forth over a couple of days or whatever, and then I no longer saw questions being asked back at me. Well, that was my point and my choice to say, is this going to go forward? Is this equal investment? And am I going to see that compatibility?
Yeah.
Do you find your clients and people coming to you with the same questions?
Yeah, definitely. I actually had a client this week actually ask me the same thing. I think people are, like I said, there needs to be some sort of level of chase on either side. Like if even like I know that they always say, men need to chase. Women still need some degree of chase as well. Like if you're too easy for us, then we're like, okay, well, we put you in the safe box because instinctively we're looking for a man who's able to offer us that excitement, that, that kind of thing that we want, where we want security. We want to know that you're not going to heartbreak us, but at the same time, we want that excitement. We want that, unknown sort of thing. And someone's response is usually your indication of how much you should give or how much you shouldn't give. Everyone's always like, but how do I know? I was like, well, how did they respond? Yeah. If he started to really pull back, then you need to pull back. If she started to pull back, then you need to pull back. It's about understanding how the other person works and how, that sex works, whether it's male or female, and giving to the point of what is a healthy standard and of what you should, but then leaving that room to allow that person to invest. If you're chasing a woman all the time and you're only ever chasing her and she's never putting effort back in, never reciprocating, is it because you're not giving her space to actually do that? Or is it because she's not actually the sort of woman who is ready for a relationship and ready to understand what it takes to get into a relationship. And again, this is why dating is important, because you work out who is actually in it for a relationship and who's maybe incapable of having a relationship, or who just doesn't want a relationship. And what we do is when we feel that we're putting all this effort into a relationship, but we're not getting the return that we want, such as someone responding and giving back equal effort, we become really disappointed and we start to overthink the process, when really all you've done is you've identified more character traits about that person, which then goes, that's not the right person for you. You know, so it's not necessarily something that you're doing wrong. It's just something that you've identified about that person, which is what dating is. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's like, it's information gathering until I realize that I need to establish my boundary and communicate that we're not going to go forward beyond that.
Yeah. And that's it. And when you establish your boundary, you either give them a chance to step up or step out, as I say. So if you know, like I've literally just recorded a coaching session on this, if someone pulls back or if someone stops putting in effort, is it them, as in something could be going on in their life? Maybe they're super busy, maybe they're stressed out and they're just incapable of giving you more. Is it the both of you together? Something's happened where they're not really feeling good about you anymore. They're not having that chase in between. They're not really kind of, you know, something maybe yucky has happened and that's why they've pulled back. Maybe there was an awkward moment. Or is it you, the dater, where you've done something to actually scare that person away? So those are kind of the three categories that you look at, and you step back before you emotionally respond or get upset about it. Go, okay, is it them? Is it us? Or is it me? And then that's where you work out the solution.
I'm on board with that. I totally can identify where I went wrong maybe in the past with that 1, 2, or 3 type categories. And what I've learned since is that when I'm compassionate for this instance, for the other person, or I give them grace for the stress that's occurring in their life, or they're pulling back for X, Y, Z, I believe that I can enjoy the process more when I'm compassionate and I'm gracious for other people. There's not really a question there, but like, I do love to stay in that zone of like meeting them where they're at. It's one of my favorite phrases. Yeah,
absolutely. As long as it's not compromising who you are.
That's correct. And I definitely need to remind myself of that on a constant basis, is maintain my own identity, allow the person that I want to be with their own identity, and how can we meet in the middle, or how can we meet each other where we're at?
Absolutely. And that's where compromise comes into a point where you have to be flexible, but compromise shouldn't be about then settling for second best. If a woman, for instance, is someone that isn't able to put in effort because she's got stuff going on in her life, she's super busy, okay, fair enough. And you have that grace towards her. But if you are rewarding that behavior and still giving her the benefits of the relationship and of your attention, without her actually putting anything in, she then doesn't need to continue to put anything in because you're already giving her the benefits. You know,
that's correct. Yeah.
It doesn't then really make sense. Like, you're meeting her at her level, fair enough. But if her level isn't actually able to give you a healthy relationship, then you're never going to get that from her. You know, so you have to know what that halfway point is. I talk about the dating scale, which is halfway point is always the point of balance, where you have a healthy perspective, you have a healthy understanding of self-love and boundaries. Now, one end is basically where someone comes along and then they stop before the halfway point. You start chasing them. They move back, you chase, they give less, you give more, hoping that you'll get even more back, which always has the opposite effect. And before you know it, you've tipped the scale and you're down this end, and you're making decisions out of this end where you're like, yeah, but I'm putting in effort and I'm putting in effort. But because you're off balance, it is incapable of going in the direction that you want it to go in, just logically. Okay. And that's the dark dungeon. And then the extreme of that is where you pull back, someone puts an effort and you pull back, and you end up either setting expectations too high because you're afraid to be hurt, and you push away the good ones and you lock yourself in what I call the white tower, which is you don't want to let anyone in because you're so afraid to be hurt or to settle for second best or to repeat the past. So you have to obviously go, okay, well, yes, I understand that some people need time. They need, you know, some grace and some flexibility. But the longer that I allow her behavior and affirm her behavior, or his behavior, the more they're going to keep thinking that that's okay. And so you set the standard and the tone for that then relationship of never really going anywhere because you're allowing it to do that.
Yeah, you're definitely conditioning the other person, a positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement. And that's the basic of psychology. We definitely don't have enough time to go down that rabbit hole today. But I'd love to discuss the patterns that you were just touching on there, repeating old patterns, identifying patterns. Is this part of the self-discovery process, or is this really the initiation of the long journey?
Yeah, it's both. It's funny, whenever I get on a discovery call with a client, I ask them a couple of key questions. They tell me some answers. After about 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, well, here's the thing. And I tell them, I'm like, bang, bang, bang. They're like, I had a male client go once, do you have like a crystal ball that you just look into and it tells you everything? They're like, you're spot on and hit on the head. And the reason why is because whether it's Johnny or Jane, there is a consistent sort of pattern in human behavior. And that's why I said that's with the whole dating scale. You're either in the dark dungeon or the white tower. And our patterns basically come from, what we've been subjected to as children, again, because it's a cycle, because it's basically coming to human behavior. And there's 6 different needs in the human. So we need to understand that we will continue to act out of these patterns, whether we want to or not, because our mind gravitates to whatever it is we're familiar with. So if you've only ever had toxic relationships, even if you want to have an amazing relationship, your brain will more likely shift towards the toxic ones because it's just easier. Our brain is wired to do what is easier, and it takes more discipline and strength to actually go towards something is better. That's why we have to, when I work with my clients, I try and retrain their brain for 21 days so that we can start to create new patterns, so that your brain then shifts a new easy into a positive easy rather than toxic relationships. It's positive and healthy relationships. And it's an ongoing process because we're constantly evolving and we're constantly changing as people. So it's about obviously bringing out old baggage, which I do one particular exercise with my clients, which kind of gets out the junk, reaffirming new patterns and keeping them accountable to that, and not just saying, okay, say this affirmation, but do this action so that it becomes a part of your habits, your physical habits. That's when you start to see the shift. And that's when you start to think differently. And when you think differently, you then act differently, and then you date differently. Essentially,
it all comes back to mindset, doesn't it?
It does.
Affirmation and action to see the shift, and then we can really enjoy the process again, and we can kind of boiling it all down, we can manifest that ideal person that we want to be with, because we've worked so deeply on what was holding us back and what was the pattern that was repeating over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So it all comes back to, it starts with me.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And what's the common denominator in every relationship? It was me.
Yeah. That's it. And it's kind of, it's like a lot of people know that and I guess they get to a point where they reach out to me is because they know that it's them, but they're not sure what it is about them. And it's not until they have an outsider's opinion that goes, well, do you realize that this is your pattern, A, B, and C? And I'll ask them questions and I'm like, so I'm guessing that all the men left you. And they'll be like, oh, how did you know that? Okay. Or I'll say, oh, I'm guessing that you ended all those relationships. And they're like, how did you tell? And again, because I'm able to see patterns just by asking them a couple of questions, which just form their life to get to the point. You're single for a reason, whether that reason is you want to actively be single, or whether it is you're trying and you're not getting anywhere. There's a reason behind that. We're not just here by default. We don't arrive at this point in our life by default. It's because we're consciously or subconsciously making decisions out of what has been buried in our mind from a child. I deal with a lot of mainly male clients where they struggle to build relationships because their parents have gone through divorce. They struggle to commit because their parents have gone through divorce, where I find as women, if they've gone through parents of divorce or a father that has left them, then they're basically searching for that validation in men. Okay. So different issues, it might be the same issue, but it affects the sexes differently. And then we act out of that as well. But absolutely, you're right. It all starts with you. You are the common denominator. You're responsible for your actions and your mindset and what you choose to do in a relationship, whether it's a good relationship or bad relationship. You're only responsible for you. You can't be responsible or even control how someone else feels, thinks, or acts. So if you want the change to start, it has to start with you.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. And in this love education process, how does one go about, let's for example, say that somebody needs to take a break from dating. How do they best date themselves to educate themselves on what love really is?
Well, I think if you're taking a break from dating, you need to actively get off any dating apps so that temptation isn't there. What I suggest, dating yourself. Okay, so we've got to look at what dating is. Dating, you can be dating yourself, you can be dating your work, you can be dating your friends, your love life. Dating is essentially prioritizing something to place value on it or communicate your own value back to it. So whether that's a person, whether it's yourself, or whether it's your work, it's whatever you want it to be. So we need to then understand, well, we never really want to stop dating ourselves, because obviously it's something positive, right? But we place value on ourselves and we communicate our value. What I suggest is, dating yourself every day if possible, whether it's just 20 minutes, which I do every morning. And my fiance knows that's my thing with my dog. I go for a coffee. It's my time where I just have 20 minutes. I have my coffee. We've even got an espresso machine. I don't need to go for a coffee, but I love to do that because it makes me feel good. It fills my own cup back up. It resets my own self on that dating scale for even my relationship so that I can be the best version of myself. And I think we need to look at dating ourselves as not necessarily, I need to fix me, but rather I need to celebrate me. I need to understand that in order for me to be able to give the most to someone who's worthy of that and to, recognize that that's the right person, I have to come from a place of wholeness. I have to come from a place of overflow rather than from dating from a place of lack. Because if you're dating from a place of lack, which is usually, fear and lack are the two big reasons why we have issues, then you're going to keep giving, and you're never really getting anything back. And as I said, when you're able to invest and pour back into the relationship with yourself, you have a new sense of fulfillment and happiness that isn't even achievable from somebody else, no matter how amazing they are in the first place. And that's something we should continue to work on.
I love it. That's the best advice that I can possibly think of. I take daily walks with the dog. It's one of the best kind of meditation for me, but more so it's just spending time alone by myself, appreciating what we have. Gratitude for my dog. I saw the dog in the background earlier. It was super cute puppy. We're dog fans around here. You can't pour from an empty cup. So if you're not taking care of yourself first, then the happiness that comes into a relationship is going to be absent at maybe in the majority of the time or some of the time. And then that fulfillment just isn't there. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think if you are pouring from an empty cup, you're relying too much on someone else to fill you back up, which, even if they're a great person, it puts way too much pressure on them and it's not healthy. You then at risk of losing your own identity. You're at risk of putting that person on a pedestal and making them your sole focus instead of understanding you can have your own purpose and your own goals and be self-sufficient outside of that person, which is incredibly healthy in a relationship. And it won't fulfill that deep need because it'll always be, you're always searching for more and wanting more from someone instead of understanding how to give that back to yourself, how to be that whole person outside of a relationship, even if the relationship's amazing. Just because you find a great person, it's not about, both of you then going, okay, well, let's just give, take. It's about, okay, well, also I want to give, take to myself as well outside of you because I need to in order to be able to make sure that I'm making the right decisions in that relationship to keep it healthy as well. And when we give beyond what it is that we shouldn't, we then lose perspective on where boundaries should be set. And then that's when we start to slide down the scale into the dark dungeon part where we're giving, assuming that the more that we give, the more that we'll get back, when in fact, all it does is push the other person away, or worse, they take advantage of it. And so having a full cup means that you do not lack. So therefore, you're able to have that time, that perspective to actually set a healthy boundary and know what a healthy boundary looks like.
And then you have less fear and you have more success. You have more enjoyment for the process. And all of it comes together in this just beautiful life that we all want anyways.
Yeah, you have more clarity as well, because if you know that you're doing the right thing and the person is still being an idiot, then they're not the right person. Or keep them in line, keep them accountable. It's just like, it's practical thing as well. It's not just the gooey feelings. It's like, okay, well, here's the boundary. As I said, you either step up or you step out. And that's what helps you identify the people that are really ready to invest and grow with you, or the ones who aren't. If you're constantly not knowing where to put boundaries, or you put boundaries where you shouldn't, then you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're investing into people that aren't capable of giving you a healthy relationship because you haven't set a healthy boundary.
Amen to that. 100% on board. If somebody wants to learn more about you and hear more of what you have to offer, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So the best way is to either follow me on my Facebook or my Instagram page, which is just at Renee Slansky. I do almost daily lives on there. Or you can head to my blog, which is thedatingdirectory.co. Loads of, like, thousands of articles on there, and definitely my YouTube channel. I'm always doing regular videos for there as well.
Awesome. I really appreciate your time today. I know you're busy. It's later in Greece than it is here in Denver. It's creeping up on 9 a.m. for us, but thank you so very much for your time. If there's one last key piece of the puzzle that you want to leave us with today, what would it be? I
think dating doesn't have to be that hard. It really doesn't. As I said, if you know how to date strategically, then the results are different. It should be something where it just basically comes down to a level of knowing what to do and then putting that action into place. It doesn't have to be a game of trial and error. You can even use apps strategically. You can use how to meet people strategically, all of that. And again, if you're able to set yourself up from a point where it's a lifestyle change and a lifestyle mindset that you're cultivating, dating just becomes this breeze, and it becomes this added excitement and bonus in your life instead of an absolute mission.
Very well said. Beautiful point to close us out today. Thank you so very much again, Renee, for your time. What do you say in the next 6 to 12 months? We jump on Instagram Live or Facebook Live and we collaborate again to share more of the message of what we're trying to find or give to other people so that they can find what they're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I'm always around, and I'm all about getting the word out there as much as possible so that everyone can just make their life a lot easier and, just connect. So yeah, absolutely.
I totally agree. Thank you again so much. And I hope you have a wonderful day in Greece.